concept of the what we call the frozen middle. What's been termed the frozen middle, and most of the time it's just the pressures that these people feel. Right? There's a change coming from the top, they need to implement it. But they also need to understand the realities of the day-to-day on the ground, and they're finding that people aren't really adopting the change because it's not really solving their problems, and they're stuck there sort of trying to manage these two worlds. And it speaks to exactly your point. You need to engage with everyone and understand their real challenges across the different levels. Because if you think about it from a person actually doing the work, the person who's with the tool in the hand, for them it's how does this actually change and make my work easier on a day-to-day basis. But you have the middle manager who has to then manage how the new way of working, the new way of measuring performance against this person, and how that changes the reporting back up, right? And then for the leaders, it's all about changing the types of questions that you're asking related to how the work is being done. So it's all about making sure that change is considered from all those different levels.
And all I pick up in that is that at each level, new things, new behaviours, new decisions, new ways of looking at whatever you need to look at are formulated, right? Yeah. And so new things take longer to, because we're learning new things, it takes a little longer. So there's that sort of trepidatious period around, I'm feeling a bit awkward, I don't really know what the next step is, and we've got to be able to also consider that effectively.
Yeah.
So we can push through that and ultimately then get that sort of, they call it unconscious competence, right?
Correct.
Level.
Yeah, and then it's all about then running through that cycle, right? As you said, it's all iterative and going through that reflective loop, right? So it's conscious incompetence, conscious competence once you know the new system and how to actually apply it. Then eventually it becomes unconscious incompetence, where it's just a day-to-day thing. But then what we also push further again is you need to have that reflective competence. So how do we then think broader and further around the issue and not get comfortable again in that unconscious competence phase?
Cool. Let's just move on to an example. Is there an example you want to share?
Yeah, no, typically, when we see in the age of AI tech, fourth industrial revolution was the thing back then. Feels like AI has jumped to the 100th industrial revolution, not even the 5th, right? Skipped a few stages. But with any sort of technology implementation, that's when you really see these sort of problems rear their head. So there'll be some sort of new software. In our mining examples, usually it's some sort of new scheduling tool that gets implemented. And then obviously the software provider has a spec of how to build the tool, sell it to the person in charge of the IT department. They really like it. They see the potential value in the solution, and based on all the features and all the things that the software can actually do, we decide to go with this new piece of kit or software. We sort of at a high level do process mapping, the normal stuff, normal process now, process as it should be versus what the process will be once we implement this new piece of software. Then we go and try to get into the implementation phase, right? Sticks maybe for a week or two, then we wonder why people are back to spreadsheets, right? When you really, again, lift the hood and really engage people at their level, what you find is the problem that the software is solving isn't really the problem that the person on the ground is facing on a day-to-day basis, right? Most of the time you find it hasn't actually made my life easier. It's made my life more complicated. It's added admin to my role. And you've seen this a lot with a lot of software implementation support that we provide for all of our clients across mining and different industries as well. Where once you engage with the people, really understand what the bottlenecks and hindrances are for them adopting this in terms of their day-to-day work, then you can start really redesigning the right processes that need to be then looked at and then said, where does technology support those processes, right? Rather than the other way around, saying, okay, this is cool software, we need to adjust our processes to meet what the software features are and what it can offer us, and then try to push that down. You need to push it the other way, right? Understand what the problem is, remap your processes, then look for the right solution to support and enable people doing their day-to-day work.
Yeah, so don't automate your garbage is a term, right? Yeah. If that's the case, yeah. Okay, cool. And then maybe in sort of rounding this up a little bit, have you got sort of like a way of remembering?
Yeah.
How to get through all of this? There's quite a lot, right?
Yeah. You can almost summarize in like 4 main questions that any leader can ask themselves if they're thinking about change and changing systems and processes within the organization. I think first is always start with why, and why we're doing this change, understanding why people are sort of resistant to the change as well. So first clarify your why in terms of why you want to achieve what you want to do. Then also understand the why in terms of the people that are actually going to be implementing the change as well. So what does it mean for them? Why would they resist the change? Why would there be any sort of reasons for them not to adopt it? Then sort of secondly, you're sort of looking at then engaging the people at the right level, right? So we're having some meaningful engagements around those issues that you may have already thought about. And that on its own also sort of further highlights further issues that might lead to why people may not adopt the change as you would have thought of it. Then because you would have done the engagement and actually thought about the why, then you start to really ask your question around what meaningfully changes in the day-to-day work that this person needs to do, right? So when they come in the morning for my 9 to 5, 8 to 3, whatever it is, what needs to change in terms of how I conduct my work on a day-to-day basis, and is what we're implementing really going to result in the why that we stated in the beginning, right? So I think that's a very critical piece that people sometimes don't spend enough time on, right? That meaningful sort of how is this gonna change, and does it really result in the results that we
And I imagine that during that third phase, we're talking about moving from conscious competence, where I'm awkward about this new thing, to an unconscious capability.
Yeah. And then the last sort of question you always have to ask yourself, especially as a leader in this place, is have I built sustainability into the system, right? Do I have the right measures to measure whether it is meaningfully changing work, or is it we going on feeling, right? We have a new thing of don't be spiritual about it, about data, right, and facts. So you gotta have data and ways to measure whether the change is happening. Is it happening at the rate that you expected? And then what also changes in the routines that people have? Are they having the right discussions in those routines? And then the last one is sort of then are you building that reflectiveness, the reflective loop I talked about, and feedback loops and mechanisms, right? To continuously get people's feedback around how it's going, why is it not working, and further making those enhancements as you go.
So maturing the system as it goes.
Correct.
But just on the data piece, one of the things that I've seen a lot of is, at a senior level they want to see the data, see things moving, but then they forget often that people on at the cutting edge doing the work need data too. We often starve them from that and they work blindly.
Correct. I mean, we always we always talk about 4 or 5 things that every employee sort of who wakes up in the morning, whose main objective is not to make the leader's job more difficult or to come stuff up at their day in the morning. There's a couple of things that they always have an issue with, and one of them is I don't know what a good day looks like for me, right? And that's one of the problems you always want to solve. Make sure people know what a good day looks like, they know how to measure themselves against that, and then you can have those conversations around finding out if there's any gaps, why it's not happening, and why they're not achieving the target that you've set for them and they've set for themselves as well.
Great stuff.